All right, I'm going to read this. How do you convert a person, place, or thing? You overwhelm them with the same programming until they cannot help but convert to the predominant programming because you weaken their resolve. Cults do that to their members. Weaken them systematically. When you want the antibiotics to take a foothold in a body using the body to destroy itself, you overwhelm the person with therapy after therapy and weaken them in body, mind, and spirit through drugs and other addictions and the desire to be beautiful, and the person has no choice but to self-destruct. Your hormones have been weaponized against you and your circles of influence. Okay, so when I'm looking at politics, religion, and science, and all of them are the same formula, allegory of good and evil, and programming people to develop an enemy or blame something. And so you always have the same parent-child relationship situation, good and evil, and God and worshiper, God and disciple. And so it's the same story everywhere you go. Go anywhere on this earth, you are dealing with the same story. So then you take it to then the primary and secondary antibodies. Now, you should only have primary antibodies, not secondary. Why do you have secondary antibodies? Because you have attacked yourself with antibiotics. So then, not only do you have a primary antibody that's supposed to work for you, but you then are taking antibiotics to develop a secondary antibody to protect yourself from the antibiotics that you are trying to use against your primary antibody, which is the inflammatory response. Okay, so now you have two antibodies that are supposed to be working for you, but really one of them is working for you truly. The other one is a mercenary. The other one is giving you that secondary type of relief from some pain and inflammation so you can stay in the game. But you hope you don't have, a bunch of predisposed issues that are going to then compound that issue with that secondary antibody. But what happens is with that secondary antibody, it has the potential to get converted into something that works against you. Okay, so then I'm likening this stuff to the prison system, to the police force. Okay, so you have a working society and someone commits a crime, that's a disease. A police force is a primary antibody. Okay, and it's supposed to protect the citizens, protect you, and all this other stuff, right? And so then you cart the criminal off to the prison building. Then the guards are supposed to then hold hostage, corral those prisoners, and keep them safe from society so they don't keep reoffending. Well, sometimes those guards get converted. Those guards are supposed to be working for the system, fall in love with the prisoner, or the prisoner manipulates the guards into letting them go free, manipulates the guards into having sex or whatever. And so now you have a hole in the system. Now you have a hole in that alimentary canal that's holding those antibodies. And so now what happens is then the prisoners escape, which is the antigen, that is the antibiotics working against you, that your body had to develop to protect it against itself because you took the antibiotic, and now that antibody that you're trying to protect yourself against is then now working against you and converts all the other antibodies as you keep taking in more antibiotics. So if you're taking NyQuil and your body is producing antibodies against NyQuil, and you're kind of at relative equilibrium, but you keep taking NyQuil every single time you get some kind of inflammatory response because of your exposure, that NyQuil antibody is then going to stop your protection, your primary antibody that's protecting you, that's truly protecting you, and then that's when people convert their system from a life force into a death force. And so it is all physics. And so it's like, then what happens with when you have both the primary antibodies and the secondary antibodies living together, then you look outside your community. Look at the homeless. The homeless are the secondary antibodies. They're not contributing to society. They're putting up their tent cities, pooping everywhere, leaving garbage. San Francisco is a perfect place. I used to live there. Homeless were pissing in the streets, shoving needles in their arms in the streets. They have like blocks and blocks and blocks of the tent cities of garbage that they have accumulated in different areas below some of the mixed-use buildings. And so the residents that live in these huge high-rises are looking down upon tent cities. And so then they're taking resources away from the main arteries, and they're like a cancer. And so then you look at your body, when your body is not purging, when it has a crappy release process, a crappy immune system, and it's not releasing all the dead weight inside the body, then you have cancer cells inside your body taking up resources, diverting them away from you. And they're wandering aimlessly about in a rootless existence, not really programmed to do anything. Homeless aren't programmed to do shit. What do? They're programmed to just sit somewhere and steal and get in fights. I mean, you feel bad for them because some of them have mental issues. They were released from the asylums that were closed down many years ago. And so what do you do with a bunch of people who have been under experimentation, that were failed experiments that couldn't contribute to society? So they're now all over California, all over San Francisco, California. I don't see too many out here because it's freaking cold in the wintertime and really hot in the summertime. I wouldn't want to be homeless in the Northeast. That would be torture. If I'm going to be homeless, I'd be homeless in Hawaii. That's where the ultimate place to be homeless is sleep on the beach. I've slept on the beach before, not because I was homeless, because I fell asleep. But then you get sunburns, and so you get other issues like skin cancer. Okay? And so I'm writing this because that chapter about you're born to live or you're born to die will have this in it with the prison system or the prison system metaphor. Because I'm telling you, you have to go through such a process of action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction. And what happens with our society when people don't understand the laws of motion, they skip some of the actions and reactions and go straight to another action, reaction, but skip the 5 steps. Because there's so many steps to get from point A to point Z. What people usually do is they go straight to point M and forget the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, P. And so they get to point M and they go to Z, but they never even bothered to learn from A to M what the processes were, what the action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction. And so this is where I'm filling in the gaps for myself. And so when I'm trying to use analogies and metaphors and allegory, which is why you see all the stories on TV, then that makes it easier to explain. And then you also can see it in your community, what policemen are up against. Some policemen are working against the system. They're the disease. Some of the policemen are diseases in their community because they're not working for the people anymore. They're working for the different cartels. Okay, we know that happens. And there are some policemen that are primary antibodies that are there to protect the system, protect the people, protect whatever interests. And there are some that don't. And we hear about them in the movies. Okay? And so there's the primary antibodies. That's what protects, that's your inflammatory response. When you see a police fight and they're chasing the criminals down the street, or there's shootouts or whatever, you see all this stuff. That's the primary anti-inflammatory response. That's the primary inflammatory response. But what happens is we have people using anti-inflammatories and they're like, okay, disable the police, stop or defund the police. And that's anti-inflammatory. So then you don't have the protection. And so then now you have to go on your own and fight for yourself and use your own protection. Or you just stay away from idiots. Okay? But the prison system is the secondary. The prison system is like taking antibiotics, because can they really convert those prisoners in the prison system? What I found is that the prisoners that are in the prison system for many, many years, they don't learn how to be a productive member of society. Some do, but some don't. And they learn how to be better criminals. And so that's a whole other world. Okay, and then some get their shit together and they go and teach others how not to make the same mistakes. Okay, and so then 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 I do mention like a little bit about recidivism rate, and I don't go into like statistics, but I say that the potential to convert a prisoner from a criminal into a productive member of society. I mean, there's so many repeat offenders that at this point, are people actually learning, or are they just getting better at their craft? Okay, so it's not easy to talk about antibodies because we have been taught to ignore point A to point M and only go from point M when it comes to order of operations and processes. But you got to understand that the primary antibodies are the inflammatory responses that your body produces when it gets exposed to a virus. When you get exposed to a virus, whatever it is, whether it's in your system that woke up because of frequencies or another virus, whatever, you're supposed to let it express. You're not supposed to take anything against it, not even an immunotherapy. You let your body produce the primary antibody response, the inflammatory response. Never take any anti-inflammatories or antibiotics, because then your body produces a secondary antibody that then turns into the monster, becomes the cancer, becomes the alter ego, becomes the monster inside that does get traumatized and programmed and is the thing that you're fighting your whole life. And so now, and so then the autophagy also contributes to that, because when you get exposed to a virus and you're taking antibiotics, the waste material from the autophagic process, because of the degradation, the breaking down of those cells, then merges in with the antibiotic, and then your body produces antibodies. And so now you have parts of you, parts of the antibiotics that are attacking you. And so then you attack yourself, and that is the self-destruct. When you're merging in and conjoining something that is deadly to you, but you're trying to live, and that is the black and white checkerboard. That is the Freemasons. That symbolism for duality, as above, so below, binary, everything. Okay, and so now you have to realize that that's what secondary antibodies do. They turn into cancer, disease, and chronic illness. And so every single time you take a NyQuil, a pill, a powder supplement, detox, turmeric, and honey, you are developing secondary antibodies that are metastasizing in your colon, metastasizing in your immune system. And so when the frequencies change, the replication rate changes and it accelerates, which is why people are not getting ahead of their diseases. They're actually dying from preventable diseases because the atmosphere has sped up. Okay? And so if that's what I'm saying, you better get this now, because right now with the atmosphere the way it is, those who are violent will get more violent. Those who are loving will be even more loving. Those who are funny will be even funnier. Those who are depressed will be even more depressed. Those who are smart will become extremely smart in an accelerated environment. And so the outcome is the intention, but the energy influences the state that you're in. And so what goes in motion stays in motion. What's at rest stays at rest. And if you want to change your trajectory, you're going to have to then allow the energy that's in your body or that when you get exposed to something out there, you don't try to stop it or squelch it or, I don't know. You have to now take the time and feed your body, open up your system, because you can't afford to now live in a closed system. Okay? And so I think some of these analogies will make sense, because you can look in your community and you can see and observe the cancers that are in your society. And I even made an analogy that children can be like cancer, because you have either reproduction and replication, conception, infection from antibiotics and new viruses that hit your body in a high frequency environment. You're developing infection. It can turn into a tumor. It can turn into a cancer. It can turn into a growth. And then it also can turn into a child. And then all of the above do take away and divert resources away from the host, away from the parent. You're the parent. Your tumor is a child. People don't think of tumors, benign or malignant. A child is like a malignant tumor. It's highly energetic. Though I don't think parents want to refer to their children as malignant tumors, but it's the same energy. It's the same concept. Except now you have eyes and a nose and mouth and someone talking back to you versus this thing that just sits in parts of your body that just sits there and just takes away resources and is painful. Having children is painful. Raising a child is painful. And so the analogy, the correlation, the association that malignant tumors are like children is completely appropriate. And when that professor said a couple of years ago that children are like parasites and people were all fucking up in arms about it, he is correct or she is correct. I don't know if it's he or she that said that. But they are correct. Children and tumors and anything that is feeding off a host, taking away resources away from the host, is parasitic in nature. Okay? Okay? It has qualities of a parasite. It might be a symbiote, maybe. You can call it a symbiote. But I don't think children are symbiotic unless you make them symbiotic. Oh, yeah, my kid keeps me alive. It gives me a reason to live. So it's a symbiotic relationship. The kid gives you a meaning, and you give meaning to the kid, and you guys are feeding off each other. Okay, that's symbiotic, I guess. But in some instances, a lot of instances, children are really the ones that take resources away from you, divert resources away from you inside, because that's why mothers get gestational diabetes and other types of pregnancy diseases, because they're now in deficit and the body's trying to live, so it develops disease. And so then that has to get managed through the hospital system as well. And that's why there's high-risk pregnancies. Because can the mother afford to have that kind of parasite in the body taking away resources that she is needing so much? Okay? And so yeah. How do you convert those who are wandering aimlessly, who are being corralled behind lockup facilities, integrate into a proper working system? You have to get to the root cause, which is acknowledging they have aimless, rootless energies in their body causing them chaos. And so you want to see a repeat offender change their ways. They got to purge out the demons. There are so many demons in people who don't integrate into a methodical, productive working society. And a lot of it's because they have predisposed issues that no one in the mainstream wanted to acknowledge or said that they were stupid or whatever. Okay? And so we have a lot of traumatized children out there who grew up to be adults who said, fuck the system. And yeah, I was one of them for a few years. Fuck the system. Fuck everybody in it because they don't fucking understand. They think I'm stupid. They think I'm lazy. They think I'm this, and that. Fuck them all. That's what I said for many years. Fuck them all. And so then now here's the product of it. Fuck you. I'm kidding. All right, bye.